This is the Vince Salerno Podcast, episode 13. On today's episode, we have Christian Lovetere talking about the movie Secret of Kells. Also, we're going to be talking about The Circle, Bridgit Mendler, Marvel, Mel Gibson, and much, much more. So sit back and relax because the Vince Salerno Podcast starts right now. Hey guys, welcome to the Vince Salerno Podcast, episode 13 on this Friday, February 17th, 2017. I'm your host, Vince Salerno, and I'm joined by a very good friend of mine who's been on my JP Catholic journey since the very beginning. Actually, I think he was one of the first people I met. But he's here to talk about a very special film that we both got to watch over the week. It's Christian Lovetere. Hi, Christian.
Hello. I've never been on this podcast before, but I'm happy to say that I have now gotten to that point. So,
yeah, we've talked about it for a while.
We have indeed, and now the time has come.
Yep.
The time has come, indeed.
Yeah. So, talk a little about yourself. What are you studying? What do you do in the world of entertainment and arts?
So, I am a video game design student right now. I'm not so much on the programming side as most. I guess you consider most people being. I consider myself on the art story side. I enjoy kind of like seeing how the art and the story come together, gameplay design, all that cool stuff. What I aspire to do one day is to make good video games. I mean, being Catholic, I don't want to say Catholic video games because I mean really, I don't make Catholic video games. I make games because I'm Catholic. Like that's kind of my mindset, and I think that's what a lot of artists should have as in their mindset. So yeah, that's kind of what I want to do. So
cool. That's a good way to go about it. Not necessarily making Catholic games, but making games because you are Catholic and you want to tell these stories from like what you know and what you've developed based on our Catholic faith.
Yeah, and I just think we all have as Catholics have an image of reality that's different from a lot of people in the world. I mean, that's what art is. It's an imitation of reality, and so I think as Catholics that gives us a perspective. Any Christians, Catholics, whatever religion you might be, but I think especially us as Catholics, since we believe, so strongly in our truth that that view of the world allows us to see things differently as artists, and I think that's really important to have.
Yeah, I think it was Gordon Willis who shot famous films like The Godfather and all those Woody Allen films. I think he said. Our job is not, as artists, our job is not to recreate reality, but to represent reality. And I think there's all sorts of different representations of reality that can be expressed. So that's just one angle of it. Anyways, let's stop this philosophical conversation and get into our
philosophy.
Yeah, no, I do too. But we got stuff to talk about. This is a movie show, so we're going to talk about the top 5 news stories of the week. Number 1. The second trailer for the movie The Circle was released. This movie stars Emma Watson, Tom Hanks, Don Boyega, Karen Gillan, Patton Oswalt, and Bill Paxton. It's about a young tech worker who takes a job at a powerful internet company and quickly rises up to the ranks and soon finds her perilous situation concerning privacy, surveillance, and freedom. And she has to sort of, eventually she's going to have to make a choice that will affect all of humanity. This movie has been on my list of must-sees for a long time. Well, since the first trailer came out, I was kind of taken aback by how different it felt, but also how it also kind of represents films that I kind of want to make. I'm very interested in how technology and surveillance and sort of the current situations we're dealing with today regarding technology and internet and social media, how that affects how that affects the world now and how that'll affect the world in the future. And this is sort of a crystal clear example of the kind of movies that I'd like to make in the future. So the second trailer is pretty good. It's not as, it doesn't really exceed the first trailer, but it adds a little more story elements that the first trailer didn't. We see that Emma Watson's character, she's just this sort of works at this desk job, kind of doesn't seem like the best job she wants, or she's striving to do more with her life. I believe one of her lines in the trailer is her fear is unused potential or something like that. I think that was the first trailer she said that. But you see her really wanting to make an impact on the world, or at least do something that's meaningful with her life. And in joining the Circle, this company, she believes she'll do that, but it seems like she's going to find out that there's a lot more than meets the eye with this almost like utopia, picture perfect workplace. What did you think of the second trailer, Christian?
I thought it was really interesting. I just find it I find it kind of surprising that anyone who joins a place called the Circle doesn't automatically think it's a cult. I mean, that's kind of that was kind of my thing. I'm like, Circle sounds exactly like a cult. But no, I mean, I'm just a game design student, so I feel like I don't have much to say about the film stuff. But I really think the aesthetic is kind of cool. Like, it's got this weird Google, Twitter, Apple, Facebook type of vibe to it.
Yeah, that's what I really like about it.
Yeah, and I always think the idea of technology surveillance is interesting. I mean, heck, I just was talking about the other day about how that our when we sign our Facebook agreements, that we give them the right to listen in on our conversations whenever they feel like, even if we don't have Facebook open.
Right.
So I think that kind of concept being introduced. I mean, it's not a new concept; it's been done before. But I think I don't know. I like Emma Watson in a lot of different things. Tom Hanks is awesome, and so it's a movie I might find myself seeing. I mean, I'm not again, I'm not an avid film connoisseur, but I would say that it's an interesting concept. So.
Yeah, really quick, I do want to touch on that because I know our main subject on this show is movies and talking about movies. The reason why I bring people like Christian, who is mostly a game storyteller, onto the show is because I want this show to be an opportunity for not just filmmakers, but artists in general to come and collaborate on certain things. And I think in the future I'm going to be picking other stories that maybe aren't necessarily inside the film and television world to talk about in the top 5 or even topics of the week. And hopefully that'll be more accessible for guests outside of the film world in the future. But I mean, you're a storyteller like me, so I think that merits you being on here. But yeah,
solid, made the cut.
Yep, made the cut. I mean, it helps that we're friends too. So
yeah, I got the inside connections.
Inside connections. Yep. But yeah, I mean, Emma Watson. I'm freaking on cloud 9 for Emma Watson right now with Beauty and the Beast and this movie, and apparently she's not doing anything this year. I forgot that she had announced that she was taking a break from Hollywood, not doing anything, focusing on her, I guess, not political career. She's kind of like a women's activist, so she's been focusing on that. But anyways, we're getting off topic. The trailer was great. I think we both really liked it, and we're looking forward to seeing The Circle and seeing what type of film this will be. And yeah, I think it's going to be really good. Once again, that cast. Really good cast. All right, number 2. One of my favorites, Bridgit Mendler, who we've talked about on the show before. She's got a brand new TV show coming out from the creator of New Girl. The show is called Thin Ice and is about a team of research scientists in Antarctica. Bridgit Mendler will play Lou, a receptionist with big dreams who takes on a new job in Antarctica that renews her love of science. So maybe her character has some sort of falling out with science, or she just doesn't like science. I know that's an interesting little tidbit. Or maybe she falls in love with a scientist. I don't know. One thing I'm curious if this is going to be like a sitcom format type show, sort of like The Big Bang Theory, or like Everybody Loves Raymond, stuff like that. Or if it's going to be like an actual set, kind of like how they shoot New Girl, where it's not that, or like The Mindy Project, where it's not that sitcom, backlot Hollywood set, but it's like an actual location with maybe a green screen or two. So that's interesting. But are you a fan of Bridgit Mendler, Christian? Do you even know who Bridgit Mendler is?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched Good Luck Charlie a couple times. I remember when Disney Channel was on my radar of things to watch back in its like weird transition between being in its heyday and then not.
Yeah. I think that show was probably one of the last ones that was like, oh, this is actually not too terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know much about Bridgit Mendler as a person. I liked Good Luck Charlie. I mean, it wasn't like fantastic, but I was like, it was pretty cool.
It was decent.
In terms of the show, it sounds really interesting because most comedies I feel like take place in like these suburbia type places or in an apartment in the city type places, but this is kind of different. It's a comedy set in Antarctica, which, I mean, my run through of comedies right now is really just sitcoms and like I said, suburbia and apartments in like this big city, but none of it's like, at least in my mind right now that I'm thinking of, none of them are really like in those like exotic locations. So I'm kind of curious to see where this goes in terms of comedy. Now, again, not a film person, but I think it's really interesting to kind of see how that's going to play out, because I mean the whole idea behind this suburbia sitcoms is that you're appealing to people everyday lives, things that these people go through. So going into the eyes of like scientists in Antarctica is kind of like, we can't exactly relate to that. So what can we relate to?
Yeah.
So although outside of that, I think the creator of The New Girl. So if it's her, I don't know cinematography exactly transfers over in a film, but if it's anything like The New Girl, then I think it won't be just like a sitcom set. It sounds, if it's based off of, I don't exactly know how, again, I don't know how the filming works, but if it's based off of what she talks about then, or what she has done in the past, like New Girl, then I would assume that it doesn't take place on just your normal set like Big Bang Theory. It's like, sounds like it might actually be like a set. Like, that's like full on, like, different angles, like you can actually look beyond the 180 line of the set.
Right, yeah. I just had a funny picture in my head of just like all these suburban locations in Antarctica. Like it becomes one of those shows.
Just ignoring the fact that it's not supposed to have, but they just put it anyway because we need suburbia.
We're discovering suburban life in Antarctica. That's what we're researching. But yeah, definitely. Bridgit Mendler's kind of on a roll since sort of late 2016. She came out with a new EP called Nemesis. She dropped a new songs, Atlantis, Do You Miss Me? She just dropped a new one a couple weeks ago called Temperamental Love. And now she's got this new TV show. So yeah, she's on a roll. And being a big fan of hers, I hope this is a sign that we'll get more and more Bridgit Mendler.
Yeah, and then also I guess one reason I kind of still do like her is because that she's one of the few Disney, teenage tweens or whatever you want to call it, who did not go completely kind of off the wall,
right?
Like crazy with their cultural thing. Not necessarily that like everybody does, but
right. But she's kind of kept under the radar.
There's a tradition. There's a tradition of kind of like wanting to make yourself sacrificing your, I don't know if you'd call it dignity, but sacrificing your dignity for the sake of just getting attention again.
Right.
At that point, you're way beyond what Disney used to have you be. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's why I'm such a big fan of hers, is because she's always like, she stays under the radar, but then when she comes back, it's a thing that maybe not everybody knows about, but enough people know, where it's like, okay, she's in the popular conversation. But it'd be great if more people followed stuff she's doing, which is clean and awesome, versus the trashy stuff that most Disney falling out stars are into.
The Disney graduates.
And Disney graduates.
Dropouts, however you want to call them.
Yeah, so keep at it, Bridgit. We love you. All right, number 3. The first trailer for the movie The Bad Batch was released. This movie stars Jason Momoa and Keanu Reeves, and I'm hearing Jim Carrey. I didn't see him in the trailer, but anyways, it's about these cannibals that live in this wasteland, Mad Max type setting, and I guess they're sort of like the heroes of the story. We're following this girl who gets captured by them, but she's not eaten by them, or she gets her arm cut off. I don't know what's going on. I wanted to talk about this trailer because I don't like this trailer, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I mean, one, it kind of looks like something we'd shoot, not to degrade film students or film school quality films, because that still has a place in the world.
But yes.
But like if you got people like Keanu Reeves and Jason Momoa, who's Aquaman, if you don't know, and Jim Carrey. Again, I didn't see him in the trailer, but apparently he's in the movie, unless that was a joke. When you see stars like that in a movie that looks like this, you have to wonder, like, what is this? What are you trying to sell to me? And, there's kind of like, mixtures of like Nicholas Winding Refn and Mad Max and Wastelander movies. Like, this looks like something our good friend Preston Yarger would direct. Minus the cannibalism stuff, or I don't know.
I think you put cannibalism.
I think maybe. But
I don't know.
And I think that was kind of a turnoff for me, the whole cannibalism aspect, because like, at least for me, I think cannibalism. I think bad. You don't eat people.
I feel like you're not the only one.
I know I'm not the only one. Yeah, but I just I don't understand why they expect us to follow these people who are going to be our heroes, and they're cannibals fighting in this desert wasteland, and I don't really know what's going on. Do you have any insight, or do you know what's going on in the trailer, Christian?
Well, I kind of watched it with the volume low, so I didn't exactly hear everything that's going on. So I'm probably
they
way
don't really
more in the
say
dark
much,
about
so.
this than you are. But I think I kind of agree with you. At first, when you showed me the link, I was like, "Oh, okay." So I clicked onto it, and I genuinely thought it was like a short film or something that a student made. So I'm like, "Okay, it looks like a decent short film being made." And then I realized, like, "Oh, these are like legit actors. Wait, this is a feature."
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It looks weird. So that's all I really got to say. It looks really interesting and kind of exciting, but I mean, wasteland type of stuff, I wouldn't even say I'm selective about it. It's really not a category I delve into that much. I mean, I liked Mad Max, which was cool, and really exciting. But I don't know. It's a category. I don't know. I'm willing to. I mean, I never would have heard of this movie until you brought it up, but it sounds like. Genuinely just sounds super weird, but cool. That's all I got to say about it.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on it, but yeah, I probably won't be checking it out unless the next trailer really like turns the tide and convinces me otherwise. All right, number 4, we got some new concept art from Marvel's new films coming out in this year and next year. First up, Thor Ragnarok. We get a couple of bits of concept art. One is of Thor fighting the Hulk. Kind of our first look into that Planet Hulk aspect is going to be put into Thor Ragnarok. We get a look at Hela, who is the main villain of the movie and is the goddess of death, and is going to bring Ragnarok upon Asgard, and and then we get a bit of Loki and Thor and their costumes and that bit of concept art as well. So that's pretty cool. And then we got like a plethora of Black Panther concept art stuff, which is really cool. It's like him in various parts of Wakanda, and the main thing that I get from this is that it's kind of a weird amalgamation of like rural poor areas, and then like this grand, like almost sci-fi looking utopian cityscapes, and then you got jungle and temples, and it's just like this like weird just combination of all these different elements, which from what I've seen from like cartoon shows and comic books, I don't know Wakanda very well, I don't know Black Panther very well, but I know this looks kind of accurate from what is known about the character and his environment that he lives in of Wakanda. So from portraying the comics correctly, I think this is awesome. It looks really cool, and I think hopefully it'll translate really well on screen. As for the Ragnarok stuff, it's cool. I've been on the fence with Ragnarok for a long time because I believe Thor needs to go into a gritty Braveheart meets Masters of the Universe tone instead of this like 80s punk rock video game type tone they're going with Ragnarok. It still sounds cool, still looks cool, but just I really think Thor works well when he's in that Viking type tone of film. What did you think of this concept art, Christian? Do you agree with me or do you disagree? Or
I'm not. I mean, I'll watch the Marvel movies when they come out just to say that I did.
Right.
I'm more of a DC person myself. Even though film-wise, it seems like the track record hasn't been so great.
Not at all.
Which I'm fine with people saying that, and I had my issues with it too. But it's just concept art. So for me, like I can like there's a lot that there's just like two really for at least I guess Thor. There's like really just two big scenes being talked about in it, which are two big scenes, which is like with Hela and then with the Hulk and Thor fighting. So. That's really. It's cool concept art. That's really all I can say.
Right.
In terms of what it plays in the Marvel universe, I don't really. I don't really care, just because I feel like it's so structured and so like there's no room for a director to breathe, kind of. And not to say that like they can't work within limits, because I think it's cool when a director can, or any artist can work within the limits given to them, but. These are like straight up creative limits. Like you can't do anything that goes outside of this master plan that we've laid out for several years. So, that's their thing. So, if a director wants to conform to that plan, that's kind of their take on it.
I think the creativity aspect comes in when people have distinct takes on the stories Marvel wants to tell. Like, we want to adapt this comic. Like, okay, why don't you do it like this per se? Or why don't you do it like Winter Soldier came out and the Russo brothers came on board with that, and they're like, okay, how do we translate Captain America into modern day? It's like, well, you turn it into a modern day political thriller, and translated really well. And then Civil War was like a family drama, kind of like The Godfather in a way. Obviously not to the same achievements of The Godfather, because that's another level in itself. And then Wakanda is just going to be like a straight up, full black cast. They're shooting in Atlanta and Africa, I think. So they're going all out on these sort of cultural aspects of Black Panther. And then Thor is, balls to the wall, 80s video game fantasy elements, which, like I said, I'm indifferent about. But it may turn out to be like the best thing for Thor. I don't know. But concept art's cool, but let's see some trailers and let's see some official photos for both those films. More so Thor, because that comes out in November. Black Panther comes out in 2018, so we can wait. All right, number 5, final of the top 5. Mel Gibson is currently in negotiations to possibly direct Suicide Squad 2 for Warner Brothers and DC Comics. Holy nuts. Is what I have to say about this. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Mel Gibson. I've had J.J. Schindler come on the show, and he and I talk about Mel Gibson, how much we love him and his movies at length. Hacksaw Ridge has really brought him out into the forefront again. He's of current discussion in the Oscar season. He's up for an Academy Award for Best Director, Best Picture, which is awesome for him. And he's getting all these great offers and deals thrown at him. Like, he's going to be in Daddy's Home 2 with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg and John Lithgow. He's going to be in this brutality cops movie with Vince Vaughn. He's moving forward with his Vikings movie that he's been working on for such a long time. And now this, Suicide Squad 2. I don't have a problem with this, because Suicide Squad 1 sucked. Not necessarily because of David Ayer, but he didn't really help matters. Not to say he's a terrible director, but he has his good days and bad days. Mainly that was DC's involvement and them trying to manipulate the situation. With Mel Gibson, I like it because he is a phenomenal director. He hasn't made a bad film he hasn't at least made a film that I haven't liked ever. So I think he'll knock it out of the park. But at the same time, is this a film that he should direct? Because this isn't really in his wheelhouse of genres he's tackled or has been willing to tackle. I mean, this is a guy who said Batman v Superman was a piece of crap. So it's interesting that Warner Brothers would even consider Mel Gibson. It's interesting he would even consider, because he confirmed that he's actually talking to them, the studio, right now. So he's willingly talking about possibly making this movie, which is incredibly interesting. So yeah, Christian, do you think this is a film that he he would direct, and do you even think he should direct this?
Well, I generally like a lot of what Mel Gibson puts out. I mean, I loved Hacksaw Ridge, loved Passion, loved all that, all that good stuff that I don't know. I guess you could call me like a super like religious freak for Mel Gibson, as most Catholics I think are sometimes.
Right.
But I'm not like obsessed with Mel Gibson. But I was really looking forward to Suicide Squad 1, and I was like hoping that the violence and the sexual gratification that was kind of being like thrown all over the place was put to a purpose. And then when I kind of watched the movie, I was like hoping like to see like what were they gonna do with all this stuff, or I don't know. I just felt kind of like empty. Like I was waiting for something to happen that just like I was waiting for it to become like a movie that I could like be like, oh, so they completely changed my mind, or they completely they subverted this, whatever, but they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I was really hopeful for Suicide Squad. Didn't work out. So the Suicide Squad 2 movie, I guess we'll see. I mean, Suicide Squad 1 didn't really get off to a good start, so I'm curious to see what Mel Gibson will do with it. Because I know DC's been trying to tread the line of like Christianity in some of its stuff. I mean, I know Zack Snyder, who did Batman v Superman, right? He's kind of known for putting Christian images in his films. I mean, like anyone who's actually like looking for it will probably find it.
Yeah.
And even in stuff like Sucker Punch.
Of all
things.
Yeah.
Which I actually did enjoy. But I think I'm curious to see what he does, because I know the DC movies have been pushing this weird like Jesus Christ imagery with Superman, but also with Batman, and then like the Trinity, and like that scene in Batman v Superman with like 3 crosses, and like there's that whole pietà scene that they kind of put together.
Yeah, that was actually kind of cool, that scene.
That was like the thing of like, I'm like, oh, cool. He thought about this a little bit, but I mean, still Batman v Superman was what it was.
Yeah.
But so I'm curious to see that, like that. I mean, not to say like I really want Christianity to be like so overt in it. In fact, I really don't, because I really don't want it to turn into some weird like God's not dead sort of thing.
Yeah, no more God's not dead.
But I'm kind of curious to see where he's going to meet himself being a very putting a lot of his faith into his films.
Right.
But then also this series that's kind of like holding on to that imagery in it within itself. So I'm kind of see like what he pulls from that and like works with.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, here's another thing to think about. I know that Warner Brothers has been known to be a very like director, like a director studio. Like they work for the benefit of the director. They try to put them in a good position. I mean, you look back at all their phenomenal films, and you can see that rings true. And I think they're trying to ride the line between doing that with DC and still building up this cinematic universe, which they have no idea how to build it up. Like, there's no plan. That's their main flaw. I'm not going to get into that right now, because we already know how much I don't like DC's current working system. But if Mel Gibson directs this, I think it's the best thing that DC's done in months, besides get Matt Reeves to direct the Batman when Ben Affleck dropped out. So we'll see. I mean, it could go both ways. It could be a recipe for disaster waiting to happen, or it could be the best thing DC could ever hope for. So yeah, we'll see. I'm interested to see how he uses these characters that are already established in the lore of the DC cinematic universe. And I know he's trying to familiarize himself with the comic books, so we'll see what he does. I'm sure he'll make it great. Okay, that was the top 5 of the week, starting with number 1, the Circle trailer, number 2, Bridgit Mendler's TV show, the Bad Batch trailer, Marvel concept art, and Mel Gibson in talks to direct Suicide Squad 2. And before we move on, earlier on Thursday, we got a official first look at Daisy Ridley as Rey, John Boyega as Finn, and Oscar Isaac as Poe Dameron in Star Wars: The Last Jedi, through to a picture of the promotional toy boxes that they're going to use to sell toys near the film's release. I just want to talk about it really briefly. Going like from left to right, Poe Dameron is in his same X-wing pilot uniform. Nothing really new there. Glad he's still got that same look, but I'm sure he'll have some different costume changes throughout the movie. Rey is the most different looking of them all. It looks like she kind of has the same garbs on from the first film. Maybe a little different. Maybe some black in there with some white on there. Maybe some brown. I can't really tell. Her hair is in a bun, but it's part of it's like, you know, falling onto her shoulders. So that's kind of cool. She's holding the lightsaber with confidence and determination. So kind of implies that she'll fully embrace her Jedi training. And then last but not least, my favorite, Finn, is sporting that jacket that Poe Dameron gave him. So he's still got the jacket, thank God. I was worried we'd never see that jacket again. But it looks like he's wearing like a white, almost Han Solo type shirt underneath the jacket. So maybe that's like some garbs that he's wearing after being sliced up by Kylo Ren. Or maybe that's just a shirt. But yeah, not a lot of changes with these costumes. It's really cool to get this first look, although it's weird that we're getting it from a toy box. But this also comes from the announcement of Force Friday 2, is what they're calling it for Star Wars, the Force Awakens. Bleh. For Star Wars, The Last Jedi, and their toy release, their big celebration of releasing all the merchandising and stuff on Force Friday. So that's going to happen September 1st, I believe. So I'll keep you posted on that and other toy news coming out soon. But yeah, first looks at Rey, Poe, and Finn. I love it. All right, now let's get on to the topic of the week. So the main reason why I asked Christian to come on the show is because he's been telling me for almost years, almost 3 years, to watch this movie called The Secret of Kells. And I just got the chance to watch it a couple hours ago, actually. But I guess the reason why it came up for conversation was because the film is based on a book. And Christian, you're reading that book that it's based on, right? What is it? What is it called again? The Book of the Kells? Or?
It's called The Book of Kells.
Cool. Mm-hmm. But the movie, really quick, just describe the movie before we get into the conversation about sort of the religious aspects and backstory and the theological aspects behind the movie and the book. The Secret of Kells is about this boy named Brendan who he lives in this fenced-in area, this giant wall surrounding his home to keep Vikings out, and his uncle is trying to keep him safe, but he wants to. I don't know, maybe Christian, maybe you can help me out. You maybe know the movie better than I do. So he's trying to. He meets this the old guy. What's the old guy's name again? The long white beard.
I've just been a while since I watched it, so
yeah.
I can't give you all the details. But
right. Yeah. But that guy, he has the book of. It's not called the Book of the Kells at the beginning of the movie. It's called something else, I believe.
Yeah, I forgot. I also forget the name.
That's okay.
All I can do, all I'm good for is themes or other things. But
right.
Yeah, what it is that he comes from this island who's just been recently attacked by Vikings, and this is based off of actual events that happened.
That's what I thought. I had the impression that it was somewhat loosely based on a true story. Like, oh, this probably actually happened.
It's based on like a true event set. Now, the story itself isn't necessarily true, but the events surrounding it are true. But yeah, he comes from this island that is ravaged by Vikings, and he's like one of the last people who can get off the island. But he takes with him the book, of which is called the Book of whatever the place is from.
Book of Iona.
The Book of Iona.
Iona.
There we go. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
So when it gets to Kells, it's called the Book of Iona, and everyone's like talking about how big of a deal this is. Like, this book has like sacred text.
Turns darkness into light is one of the things they used to describe it.
Mm-hmm. And that the eyes of people who have any darkness in their heart cannot look upon it lest they die. I think that's how they describe it in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Or something to that effect.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So yeah, Brendan meets this like fairy or something that like it's her woods and she controls the woods. She kind of has these powers that are sort of relevant to the Book of the Kells, but at the same time they're not. Maybe there's some backstory within the book itself. But I guess we're going to spend forever talking about what this movie's about. But it's a great animated movie, and you should go check it out. But first, Christian, I want you to talk about sort of the book itself. and the theological and spiritual aspects of it and how that translates into the film.
Mhm.
And then we'll talk about the film itself. So why don't you go ahead and kick
So
us
yeah,
off?
the book, The Secret of the Kells, is based off of an actual book called the Book of Kells, and what it is basically a mix of illustrated but also like written form of the four Gospels. It was actually not finished, even though in the movie it says it was. The book is actually unfinished. A lot of pages got ripped out. A lot of different things happened with the book. So you can see it like in what's left of it. Kind of, I think it's still in Ireland today. But yeah, and if you look at it, it's actually if you look at images of what it looks like today, it's actually those images are about about 1,200 years old. And so and you can see like the lines are still like the black lines are still like very crisp and very clear. The colors faded but still very prominent. And so if you look in the book, you just it just pops and just drips of just this amazing like beauty and ornate design. And you can tell it took whoever the mixture of artists that made who were a part of making it, they definitely took a lot of time to make it, and it definitely shows. And the fact that it's lasted all of these over 1,000 years, it's lasted, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And so yeah, the Book of Kells was used is the four Gospels, and so actually it was rarely ever used for actual reading in masses, likely because it was just too ornate for people to even read. Because it was just the words were just so ornate and so well designed that it looks beautiful. And really, that was actually the main point. It was the idea to capture people with this beauty that they want. Like it was like, what is this beauty that we see, even though we can't understand or read this, because it was likely never used in actual liturgy. But the book itself was used as a tool of evangelization. It was meant for people to gaze upon the pages and just look and be in awe. And honestly, whenever I in the book they talk about the big Cairo page, which is like the page that will be the ultimate of all pages. And to be honest, I think there's some truth in it, like how beautiful or how big of a deal this page is, because even when I would have to scroll back to it in one of my textbooks that I'd read for one of my classes, that I would always stop at that page whenever I flipped through it, because I just could not flip through it and not just stop to look at it. I really couldn't. Like, I knew I had other things to read, but I just always had to stop at that page because there's just so much in it. And yeah, and so it takes a lot of different things that were a big deal to the Irish animal. The animal imagery is like all over the place, because animals symbolize different things. Even the animals that you associate with bad things, like even snakes, they have a positive meaning with them, like a positive connotation. And it's really it's kind of crazy because it's a little trippy. So I would definitely not watch or like look at the pages if you're on drugs, because it's very trippy.
Gosh.
It's very trippy if you're looking to be trippy, because basically they like to take the letters and they like to put like people but in the shape of the letters, which looks really weird. But there's a meaning to a lot of it. Sometimes it's just they will like even dot like the outside of the letters with red just to like give it an extra point. Like there's very little, like there are some pages that are literally just text and you could actually read those pages, but even those pages like aren't completely bare. They always have something on them to
That's
like
really
draw
cool.
your attention. So
Yeah. For some reason I just think that if someone were on drugs and reading that book, it'd be like they'd be under the impression like, oh my gosh, it's a divine intervention. It's like, no, you're just very high. But I mean, maybe that's what they need to get converted or whatever. That'd be cool.
Well, and yeah, that's what the book was all about. It was about converting people who wanted to know the ornate designs, and
when they're not on drugs. Let's make that clear.
But yeah, and so back then in the olden days, like today we have a different idea of what we value. Back then they valued gold, silver, and ornate designs. So the Book of Kells held a lot of those things. In fact, I'm trying to remember if this is the book I read, but I think it was in the book that studied the Book of Kells, that it was talking about how it was likely that they would have bound it in gold, in a gold binded pages. And I think even in the movie The Secret of Kells, they show that because that's what likely was done with it. And they showed it to pagan people who pretty much had an aversion to the church, just as like people do today. The only difference is people happen to know a little bit more about the church today. But they still had an aversion to the church back then probably as much, if not maybe a little bit more so than the people do today. Depending on how you want to debate that, that's fine. But they would go and they would show these things that these people valued: gold, silver, and ornate designs this beauty. They would use that to evangelize them, and these people, that's all it took. It met the book met people where they were at. They were like pursuing those. They were pursuing those things in their normal lives: gold, silver, beauty, and like royal looking things. And then that book, in a sense, brought them to a place where they could then ascend beyond that, beyond just gold, silver, and selfish things. I mean, today we don't value gold and silver like the same way people did back then. I think what we value now is probably something closer to like what you'd say vintage things, nostalgic things, or things that take like time. Because I mean, when you think about it, I think as things go on, we look for new, exciting ways, or even like
the next best thing.
And I think, but what's interesting, I feel like the vintage things, like, I mean, they have lasted the longest, but they last in our eyes. We give more meaning to them than we do to the normal new things that come out. Like vintage things last. Like I'm wearing a hat right now. I have other hats like it. It's like a little Newsboys cap, and I have others like it that I've bought from different things. But the difference between them and this one is that it's my grandpa's.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's my grandpa's
hat.
That's
awesome.
And so I always find myself wearing this one, and I almost never wear the others because. And I thought about why this isn't. I think it's because of the very because it was me with my teacher who would talk to me about like what we value now, and I agree with him that I think the reason I value this hat so much is because it's authentically vintage, and so that's what we value. That's kind of going off a little off track, but I think today we value vintage, nostalgia, all that like things because it goes back to a time where we feel like we've lost something, or we value time. We value things outside of our time, and comparing it to back in those days where it was gold and silver, I think it doesn't even have to be that we even have to hide the church that's presenting all this beauty. All it needs to do is offer what the things that people value,
right? And
then they can transcend beyond those things and actually like look to becoming better people.
Yeah.
So yeah,
well said.
That's the gist, I think.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome. It makes you want to almost borrow your copy and just spend the night and take a look at it. It sounds like a really cool book, and I wasn't one of the pages you showed me a couple weeks ago. It was like there was one illustration on one page, and then there was like either the same page or a couple pages later there was that exact same illustration, but it wasn't like an exact copy. It was like they had actually drawn that same copy of that same person, hand drawn it. They didn't copy the previous page.
Yeah, so there's one, I think they're depicting one of the gospel writers in it, and then they go on a little bit later to depict the same gospel writer, and it wasn't just like a traced hand-painted copy. Like they picked the same person, depicted it with the same color scheme and everything else, but they moved the robe wrinkles, the hand positions all in different ways, so it wasn't even a tracing. It was the same. They like took the effort to not just trace it, but to make a new one. They did copy the original color scheme and all that stuff, but they positioned the hair in a different like form or different like direction. They did the robes in a different like wrinkly way. They did the hands positioned in depending on what they were doing in the scene or the page.
Right.
So they really took their time to be authentic with every single page they wrote and made. So
that's awesome.
That's probably one of the most beautiful things about the book, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I saw the cover, I immediately thought of like stained glass windows you see in churches. So I guess if you're into that sort of thing and you see the book, you'll immediately be drawn into that. I know I'll probably be asking you to borrow yours in the near future. Let's talk a little bit about the film, because this is a beautifully well done film. It's animated and directed by Tom Moore and Nora Twomey. I hope I'm saying that name right. But they're also the filmmakers behind the movie Song of the Sea, which is one of my favorite animated films of all time. If you haven't seen Song of the Sea, stop what you're doing. Go watch Song of the Sea. It's so good. Not to say this film isn't good too. This film's great. This was also nominated for an Academy Award. I believe the same year. Or no, not the same year. Or maybe it was the same year Toy Story 3 was nominated. I don't remember. Regardless, made by them. It's of those two filmmakers. It has, for voice cast, it has Brendan Gleeson, who plays Abbott. I can't even remember how you pronounce the last name, but he is the uncle of the main character Brendan, who is telling him to keep away from the outside world and don't be writing into this book or whatever. I don't think there's any other really familiar or well-known people voicing characters in this movie. Not to say any of them do a terrible job; they all do a great job. I'll just name off some of the names for sake of people who know. Evan McGuire voices the young boy Brendan. Brendan Gleeson. Kristen Mooney plays Aisling, the forest fairy. Mick Lally, brother Aiden. Michael McGrath as adult Brendan. Liam Aurkan as brothers Tang and Leonard. Or Leonardo, sorry. Paul Tylak as brother Asoa, and Paul Young as brother Square. I'm pretty sure that character is actually Square. He appears quite square in the actual movie. Yeah, very well received movie. I believe it came out. Yeah, I don't think it. Well, maybe it was 2010. I can't really tell. I guess it was 2010 when it was nominated for Best Animated Feature at the 82nd Academy Awards. But yeah, if you're into 2D animation, I feel like is unfortunately kind of a dying art, at least from a film perspective. In TV, it's sort of blowing up all over the place, but it's kind of adopted one specific aesthetic, unfortunately. But I think in film, it's a dying art, and I really hope one day Disney goes back to it. But yeah, it's kind of refreshing to see a 2D animated film. Especially one as beautifully made. This is a very stylistic animated film. I mean, Christian's kind of an animation fanatic as well. So what do you have to say on the sort of the craftsmanship of the film in general?
Yeah, I can really appreciate. That sounds like I know things. I really appreciate.
Well, you know some things.
Yeah, maybe perhaps.
You don't give yourself enough credit.
But I really do appreciate a lot of animated things. Like I tend to find myself whenever someone asks me what my favorite movies are, like the top 5 are always animated movies or TV shows that I just feel like really resonate with me. But I really like the Book of. I had some issues with the Book of Kells because in the beginning it was very 2D and very flat. But I'm starting to try to come to the decision that it might have been on purpose a little bit, but I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's not even just in the beginning. It's probably throughout the entire thing that it's very flat. But I think that was intentional, especially if you're comparing it to the actual Book of Kells, that it's almost animated in a style that is reminiscent of how the Book of Kells is actually, looks. And so, as for the movie itself, I think it's they make some decisions that don't really stay true to what the surrounding story of the actual book. Like for instance, how it was made.
Right. Yeah.
Obviously that, and also the fact that it was actually finished, because in reality it wasn't finished. But I think there were reasons that they wanted to. I think this movie was mostly a big tribute to the Irish culture and the Irish history that was behind them, or that they found themselves. They really tried. I think they really tried to capture that, especially with the mixture of Catholicism and Celtic myth. Because obviously it's really clear that they're going for both those things, but I think they're trying to bridge the gap between the two and show that there's a reason that they believed what they believed in within these myths and how it connects to what they see as the truth now. I think at least, but I really found the theme that they were going for. The light or the light that comes from the darkness, or that not comes from the darkness, but that eliminates the darkness. And I think it's kind of exactly what the actual Book of Kells was for anyway, because it was made in a time where it was really dark. It was a really dark time. It was if you were living on an Irish island in an island near Ireland, or if you're living in Ireland, Vikings were kind of a big problem. And so, but they still were determined to make this book, despite the fact that all this darkness was, around them. And I think that's even evidenced throughout the movie, is that even Brendan, who starts, who I'm trying to avoid spoilers with it, but who starts to find himself encountering the world outside of the village, and starts to encounter some of the darkness that's there, and he uses that darkness he does not necessarily use the darkness, but he looks at the darkness and sees how how it moves and how it works, and he becomes inspired in a way to light it up, to bring light to what's there. And I think that really follows the theme of the actual Book of Kells. Not to say it's weird to think that the movie's better than the original's better than the movie, but because I mean obviously it's just about something, but but
I mean, it's hard to really say it's an adaptation of the book, or more it's
not an adaptation of the book.
It's more so like a tribute to the book. I think
I would say so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a very interesting. Honestly, I'm still trying to find all the details about the movie. I really like how because in the end they kind of show the pages of the book as they are kind of today, except in how they were in their original colors, and they actually provide like movement, like as if somebody who's actually looking on the pages seeing the movement, so they animate the pages themselves, which is really impressive when they do that. So it's a very heartwarming story, but it's also, there are parts in it, especially because it deals with the Viking invasions of all these different monasteries, islands, etc. And they picture them in a very real way, which I really appreciated, even despite the fact that this seems like a really just like super basic, lighthearted kids film. Also, what I do appreciate is that they really don't say much about. I don't even think they say that they're Vikings. I think they just save the people, the invaders.
Yeah, I mean, they have very like.
It's clear that they're the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, but they have like a very distinct, almost like monster, like this square monster like look to them. I thought that was like, oh my gosh, like that's like a demon Viking.
Yeah, well,
it's super cool the aesthetic choices they use to represent good and evil, and how they draw certain characters. And that's what I love about 2D animations. You have that ability to draw characters in very distinct, using very distinct shapes like circles and squares, and I just miss that style.
Yeah, and I can appreciate how it does. It's not very like overt in like what the Book of Kells actually is, because in the movie they really don't say. But if you're actually looking into it and you know the history, you know that the Book of Kells is the 4 Gospels. I've seen people comment on it before. They're like, yeah, it's not really clear like whether or not it's Christian. The Book of Kells is really just this magical book. I'm like, well, no. If you know anything about history, it's actually the 4 Gospels. But I mean, regardless, I find it interesting that they didn't feel the need to say like what the Book of Kells actually was. They just said it's this book that lights up the darkness, and I think that's all they really needed to say.
Yeah, definitely. And the book does sort of, in the film, it does represent this beacon of light in these dark times. And even near the end of the movie, we won't spoil it, but the impact it has on certain characters at the end of the movie, it's sort of how they describe it as being like a doorway to heaven or something, or it is it's like literal images of heaven and could burn the eyes of sinners if they look upon it. And I really think it opens up, reinvigorates life and the soul of a certain character at the end of the movie, which was a pretty great scene for that character, and kind of a good what am I trying to think. Not catharsis. This character's journey sort of comes full circle, is what I meant to say. Once the book is revealed to him and it has a sort of revelation, I'm sort of riding the line of spoiler. I'm tipping, so I'm going to stop. But no, we really like this movie. It's a fantastic movie. And if you like this movie, you should see Song of the Sea, because I love Song of the Sea.
I think they're both on Netflix, so.
Yeah, I should look that up. I don't know if Song of the Sea is on Netflix, but Secret of Kells is definitely on Netflix. It's been on Netflix for like 5 or 6 years, I think. So seriously, check it out, guys. All right, well, we ran a little over time, but that's okay. With special guests, I expect that to happen. So Christian, thank you so much for being on the show. Glad we could finally make this happen.
Absolutely.
Do you want to give people a plug if they want to follow you on social media or something, or?
I don't really have any social media. You can follow me on. You can friend me on Facebook. If I know you, then I'll hit the accept button. If I don't, I'll probably stalk your profile and see if you seem like a nice person to talk to, I guess. But I have an art station, I guess. You can follow me at C_love96. Yeah, that's kind of it. I don't really have much of a public social media presence, so I mean, I guess if people request in the comment section, comment, like, and subscribe, and and then just to let me know.
Yeah, but, I'll put everything Christian said. I'll put that in the link. I'll put that in the description below, so you guys can look that stuff up. All my social media links will be in the description below as well. Quick update for you guys. I said this on my Valentine's Day episode. This is going to be the last episode I do for this month. I have a lot of work to do with finals coming up. I have a film I need to shoot. I got other things I'm pitching to people. You know, a lot of cool and exciting things happening here at JP Catholic that I might be involved with. And frankly, I don't think I'll have enough time to give good episodes of the Vince Salerno podcast these next coming weeks. So once March comes around, I'll be back in Omaha, and I'll be able to do more episodes then. So
I just realized there is something that you can follow me. You can follow me on Spotify. I have some really good playlists.
Oh yeah, that's a first. No one's ever said follow me on Spotify. I have some pretty dang good playlists.
So if you want to follow I consider myself a very good connoisseur when it comes to folk indie type music, also really mainstream music. So if you're into that kind of thing, follow me on Spotify.
Yeah, there you go. Find Christian on Spotify. No, that's a good one.
Good times.
Good times. So yeah, I'll see you guys in March. Thank you all for watching this episode. Go back and watch some old episodes. Maybe I'll be posting some old episodes while I'm on break from the show. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. All right, guys. Have a great weekend. God bless.
Adios, amigos.
Yeah. Okay. God bless and peace out.